Hi, welcome to my tutorial and class. In this class, we're going to use how to use SketchUp. We're going to use how to use SketchUp with a process called subtraction addition. You guys are all aware of it in one way or another, but I'm going to show you some examples and show you how to think about subtractive shape and additive shapes in design. So we're going to begin. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to open SketchUp. I did some prep work so you guys can see what we're going to do. So this is part of Empire State College STEM Tools, Devices, and Stimulations. So the name of this lesson is Subtraction Addition. We all know subtraction additions in math, but subtraction addition happens in all forms of all aspects of life. In economy, it happens in physics, it happens in biology, it also happens in design. So let me explain to you what do I mean by subtraction addition. Let's conduct a very simple experiment. And in this experiment, we're gonna draw a very simple shape. And as you know, in SketchUp, we always start by drawing flat and then give it 3 dimensions. So I'm gonna do a rectangle. I'll begin the rectangle on the floor. I'm gonna make a box that's 3 feet. Units are very important in design. By 3 feet. It looks like a rectangle, but if I look at it from the top, it is square, but it's rectangle because of perspective. So now my box is a piece of paper that's flat. It has no depth or height. I'm going to use the push-pull tool. Notice that when I zoom in, I have dots on the surface that I selected. So that indicates the surface is active. I'm going to lift it up. And the lower hand of the screen, right hand of the screen, you can see the height is 9, 11, 1 foot. I'm going to make it also 3 feet. So I made a cube. And this is one of the most common shapes we use as designers. I copied my cube 3 times, but I'm going to show you other shapes that we use in design. So the most common shapes that mathematically available to designers are cubes and rectangles and variations of that. We have cylinders. If I draw a circle, let's say my circle is 18 inches, and I'm going to give it height. Also, I'm going to make it 3 feet. Make sure it's the right unit, 3 feet. Now I have shape number 2, and they're next to each other. So if let's make a simple. So this is one shape, this is another shape. What do I mean by addition? If this is my shape, I can add to it other shapes. I can draw on the side of my shape rectangles. And now I have an unusual shape that has 2 things sticking out. So again, I started with one shape and I added this. I'm going to color the shapes. I added a different color. I added this shape, and I added that shape. So it's possible to start with one shape in SketchUp and add to it. I'm going to show it one more time how we do addition in SketchUp. So this, again, this is the back of the cube that I made. Let's say I want to add a shape here. I can use the line tool. I'm going to draw a line on my surface directly. So I added a surface so this is one surface, this is another surface. So the initial cube now is going to be added to. So now I'm adding to the cube in many directions. I can add to the top of the cube, and I can add many types of shapes. I can draw a polygon. In this instance, we're drawing a hexagon because it has 6 sides. So as you can see, I started with a very simple shape, and I'm adding to it all kind of fun shapes by drawing them in 2D first. I drew a triangle, and I'm pulling them to the outside. So I'm adding and adding. So I'm going to add shape there. So I'm drawing flat with the rectangle tool using the push-pull to pull the surfaces out, and that will give them height and length. So as you see, I made this very unusual shape that started with a cube and it became what it became. So what I meant by addition, that this shape is added. I'm going to color the shapes that I added later. This shape was added. I have This shape was added. This shape was added. So I'm differentiating the shapes I started with the shapes I added. And it's very clear that this process produced immediate results that are a powerful tool for anybody who's trying to solve a spatial problem by designing it. So you can tell I need to draw a splicing line so we can differentiate the original from the added shape. So the white shape is what we started, and all these colorful shapes are the shapes that were added. So this is what I mean by addition, the same way you add in math. Now subtraction is a whole different other way of working. So I'm going to draw another shape that's 3 feet, comma 3 feet. I'm going to give it 4 foot high. Keep your eye on this box there. You can see the dimensions I'm typing. And I want to confirm my work. I can always measure. This is 4 feet, 3 feet, and 3 feet. So I always double check that my work. So now instead of addition, we're going to do subtraction. So I want to take parts out of the shape. So if I draw a line from this corner to that corner, I can subtract this shape out. So like I'm starting with a chunk of, let's call it styrofoam, and I'm taking away parts that I don't want. So I can take round parts. I can draw straight lines and subtract. I'm cutting this. I could cut it halfway, or can go all the way through and drill a hole. And the program will automatically drill a hole through the shape. So as you see, if I want to make, let's say, a mask or a face kind of thing, some kind of creature, it won't be bad to do this. And I want to line up these two guys. I can draw on any surface. So if this surface is slanted, it's still available for me to draw on. I'm making some strange alien face. And these are going to be the eyes for my robot. And so I'm subtracting, taking away part from the original shape. So I'm subtracting. This is not the same level. I'm going to bring this surface and that surface and line them up. It would be nice if this, what seems to be like a nose, if it can go back up. And maybe I can draw a face there. I'm going to erase these lines. And I'll see how this face is selected. If a face is selected, I can use the pencil tool, draw a beginning of a line. I'm going horizontally, going up. I'm doing a resemblance of a face. I'm going to pull this face out. I want my nose to be on an angle, so I can draw this line from there to there. I decided I want to get this shorter. I'm subtracting from what I subtracted already, so I want to pull this. It's intersected with my eye. I'm going to bring it a little bit shorter. So this process of subtraction allows me to modify and change till I find the form that I'm looking for. So now I'm making this slanted nose. I'm going to put this surface all the way out. I'm subtracting some extra surfaces I don't need. So what I started with was one big block, and now I have, okay, the back of it is still the big block, but the front changed so much that it's almost unrecognizable that this used to fit in a box that was almost This was the box I started with. I'm going to draw some guidelines to show you where we started with and how I'm going to make this glass so you guys see the before and after. So I'm going to show you an example of how I subtracted what I left with all the subtraction. I have an option to choose glass. I'm going to make this portion glass, this portion glass. So you're going to see inside what I made. I think this makes it very clear where we started and where we ended. I'm going to make this glass. I'm going to hide these lines. As you can see, this complex sculptural shape lived inside initial cube, and I just took away parts. In this instance, I started with one part and I added to it. There is more complexity to the issue of subtraction addition. Let's say I have this cylinder and I want to cut a square hole through it. That gets very complicated because when I try to draw a shape on a surface, see how it does not intersect with the surface? I have to use a process in the computer itself called subtraction. So I'm going to draw the peg that I want to drill through this round hole. I'll make my peg into a group. If I triple click on an object, it becomes a group. Now I can move this group. I'm going to triple on the process one more time. Right click, make group. Now I'm going to move it with the move tool from there to there. So as you see, this piece does not penetrate all the way through. So I'm going to take this object, make it a little bit longer, and I'm going to move it inside my shape so it will come from the other end. So this shape is nice, but I need to subtract this form out of that form. And now this is a more complex subtraction process. I cannot push it or pull it. I have to use a new command. I'm going to right click on this and say explode. That way this surface and that surface are touching. I'll highlight the whole process, the whole geometry of the two shapes. I'm going to right click and say intersect faces with selection. Now if I delete what I don't want, which is this rectangular shape that I drew, so I can cut a hole. You see I have a surface there. Watch what happens when I delete it. If I select the surface and click delete, now I have a hole that I can see through inside my shape that I made. So this is another example of a subtraction process. The usage of subtraction is endless. For example, now I made this, and let's say I want to make this into a stool instead of being that someone could sit on. I could push this all the way to the bottom, delete these lines, and now this cylinder, sorry, I'm going to undo, make mistake. This cylinder became a table or a stool because it's much lighter weight. By subtraction, this mass that was holding the center there, it became much lighter. I can even lift this up, make it proportional, and now I have designed myself a simple little table. So the process of subtraction of addition is everywhere. Think about the house. The house might start being a box and then be raised like this, but that's one shape. Then you can add to it another shape by adding a triangle on top. So I'm going to add a triangle. Every object we see in the world is a combination of shapes or two or three. So the process of addition and subtraction is very useful. And we're going to be using it again and again in all our design problems.